Welcome, everyone, to my segment around the coffee table, where we review books that strike my fancy, and that's the reason why I'm reading them and reviewing them. So, this week's book is Trigger Warning by Neil Gaiman. Now, I thought that, I didn't think. See, that's the thing. So I posted it on Instagram, and on my Instagram, on Kitty Cat Country, if you're not following, follow. Um, I also have followers from the Weekly Creep Instagram, which is my podcast. Again, if you don't listen or don't follow, follow on Instagram and TikTok. Um, so I have it. There's a user there. Her name is Danger Destroyer, and she's heard of Neil Gaiman. So she educated me a little bit on who this Neil Gaiman is. Apparently, he's the creative mind behind Coraline, the Sandman series, which I think is a comic strip series. I think I might have heard of the Sandman series once before, but Neil Gaiman just doesn't ring a bell for me. And he is the author of today's book. Did I mention that already? He wrote Trigger Warning. Anyway, so this is the cover of the book. Okay. Inside, I have a bookmark from a bookstore out in Salem. And I have these things that I got from Amazon, the evil mega corporate corporation. Right. So yeah, I heard the siren song of Amazon and I succumbed. I mean, they're decent. I got a buttload of these for like $9, and I'm like, hey, I should have just went to Target and bought Post-it from another, Target, another monster corporation. Anyways, but at least from what I understand, they pay a decent like a decent wage. Anyways, so my thoughts on this book. So, Trigger Warning is a collection of short stories, and as he puts it here, it's a collection of short stories, short fictions, and disturbances. So I went in here. Okay, I read the first few pages of his introduction, and it started talking about like things that make you uncomfortable, and things that we shy away from as humans, that it was that kind of vibe. And I was like, oh no, I made a huge mistake picking up this book, because have you ever read a Jack Ketchum book? I thought it was going to be like that. If you haven't read a Jack Ketchum book, and you're I mean, if you're into gore horror, you'll enjoy Jack Ketchum. Um, I've noticed that my preferences in horror have been changing, and I sort of like I lean towards the horror that's like cheesy, like original Scream. I Know What You Did Last Summer. That Final Destination. I mean, Final Destination can be gory slightly, but it's like comical, Um, so that's more my vibe. I don't really fuck with like Saw and the Hostel movies. I've seen them. I appreciate them for what they were, and they're very, very groundbreaking at the time, but I can't fuck with that these days. So that's why I can't fuck with Jack Ketchum anymore. Like, he makes really good fucking books. Really good. They're well written. Like, they get my imagination running. And that's how I know that they're good books. But the subject matter, now that's disturbing. The shit that, oh God, I just can't. I can't remember the last Jack Ketchum book that I read, but it had to do with like some cannibal family that was preying on this group of friends that was staying in like a summer vacation home out in the middle of the forest, and shit just got dark real quick. Anyways, back to who we're talking about. Let's move away from the tangent. Neil Gaiman. So I'm so glad to report that it was nothing like Jack Ketchum's books. Okay. Oh, and just a side note, Stephen King thinks Jack Ketchum is scary. Okay. Anyways, so back to what we're talking about. So, the collection of short stories, some of them, I would say one of them was like what you would classically think of horror, and I feel like that's the one that I enjoyed the most. And it's a very, like, I get the vibes of these stories is very, like, classic horror nuances where it's like a good old around the campfire ghost story. Um, there's some stories in there that are like, they could be urban legends, the way that they're written. Also, there's actually some really sweet ones in there and some like really heartbreaking ones. Um, so I feel like trigger warning is too much of an aggressive title to describe this book. Now, I will confess that I've only read half of the book, and I already told you in the last episode of Around the Coffee Table that I'm a very fast reader. Okay. Every time that I go on my break at work, I'm reading a book. Okay. Um, that's something in my mouth. No. Okay. It's the Invisalign. Anyways, so I'm a fast reader. Like, I'm a self-proclaimed fast reader. I can kill a book, kill a novel in a week. This book had so much detail. Every sentence was carefully thought out, and it had information in it, right? So, you ever read a book where you can easily skim along the page and you're like, I got it. Like, you successfully have, like, grasp the situation, the description, like in your head, you know what everything looks like. You've set up the scene. It gave you enough information for it in like keywords and shit. You know what I mean? So you were able to like take a picture and you know what's going on in that particular moment in time in that book. I couldn't do that with this book. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I don't know, like, if you're a avid reader, maybe you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, I'm sorry. This is just the ramblings of a mad woman. So that's why it took me so long to read. Like, that's why I haven't finished it. And I do plan on finishing it only if I'm able to like select a easy reading for next week, which I plan to, because I really do want to finish this book. Um, so there's the introduction, and after the introduction, it's a sort of like it. Every short story in here has a title. It's not broken up by chapters; they all have a title, and they're all different lengths. And in after the introduction, there is the name of the story and a description of what inspired the story, or the the makings of the story. You know what I mean? So, um, okay. Some of them were like very like I would only imagine this coming like the subject matter coming from an author where it's like, oh, I was in like London and I was looking out into the ocean and then I just got this impression and I was just surrounded by this famous author and this famous author. Like, it was very much like that hippy dippy vibe. But like other stories were like, wow, like you wrote this story just based on this, like it's I love it. It's like it's from one extremity to the other, and it's always interesting. So let me stop being so vague if I'm being vague, and give you some of the highlights for me. Okay, so one of the things that I the story that like jumped out at me that made me think like, yes, this is a winner. Um, because I want to say it's the fourth story in here. Okay, the first story was amusing because it's about making a chair, and it he didn't say where the chair was from or anything, but he was describing how to make the chair. And imagine my surprise reading this very like nothing really happens story about a guy making a chair. And maybe I just didn't grasp the nuances of it, but it's literally a guy making a chair. And it kind of amused me because I am very familiar with assembling furniture because of the business that I am in. So that's why it tickled me. And I just imagined that he was building a certain kind of chair from a certain kind of company. So, and then, so like when I read that, I was like, okay, but this isn't a book called Trigger Warning. Like, is this supposed to be the trigger where you're like making a chair and like you're just pissed off because you can't understand the instructions or you're missing a piece? Like, I don't understand. And then it started easing you in very slowly. Like, I think the order of stories was a very smart choice. And that making a chair story was definitely like a red herring, would you call it? So, um, the first story that I will remark on is going to be Down to a Sunless Sea. Now, Down to a Sunless Sea, I love this fucking story so much. And it's only, what? Yeah. It's 3 pages. 3 pages long. That's how long it took to rock my world. Okay. So, this is just like I was telling you before. It's an old school around the campfire short story. And I read the inspiration for this story, and he was just describing like he went to a theater where they were doing monologues, and that's it. And like, but he was just saying like the monologues were so good, and they were like really painting a picture, and like, you know, they were like doing acting while they were doing their monologues and stuff like that. And I thought that was so fucking genius to be like, and if you pick up this book, you'll know what I'm talking about. The story is essentially, you could see the inspiration of a person monologuing, because it's about a woman monologuing, and she's telling you why she's by the sea. And it's heartbreaking at first because of who's like, she's there every fucking day, rain or shine, she's always there. And it breaks your heart to know why she's there. And then you're like, oh my God, ma'am, I'm so sorry. And then it goes into like, oh my God, like, I can't believe that happened to you. And then you're like, oh my God, no, like, get away from me. It is in 3 pages. It was like a roller coaster. This man is talented. And he probably doesn't need me to fucking say that, because like he's a well-established author and fucking is in movies and shit. So, so I'm probably like beating a dead horse here, but this guy has like some serious fucking talent, and I'm so glad that I picked up this book. So, and I'm not even done describing like the rest of the shit that I read. So, all right. So like I got so invested in the stories, right? And I was like, wow, this is a good story, so I'm gonna bookmark this one. This one's really good, and shit like that. And then I was like, well, wait a minute, like I need to slow the fuck down, because I need to actually get into some of the lines, and why I feel like, not just because he can paint a pretty mind picture and get my imagination going, but some of the lines are just like very well written, not like well written, but you get the sense that you really, like, you read these sentences and you're like, man, books really can be, or like written things really can be works of art, you know, outside of poetry, like storytelling and shit like that. This really is. You forget that it's an art form, you know, and reading these lines really drives home, and it reminds me that yes, this, remember, bitch, this is fucking art. Like this is, you know. So anyways, hold on, where's that line that I was, okay. Oh, this story. Okay. So he has a collection of stories in here that is January through December, and they're all called like January Tale, February Tale, so on and so forth. And the inspiration for this, like he's a Twitter user apparently, but he got on Twitter and he was like, what, you know, posing different questions regarding different months of the year, and he picked his favorite retweets and he made stories out of them. Can you? And he thanked the Twitter users by handles. Like I guess I think that's what they're called, like their names on Twitter handles, Twitter handles. And one of the ones that felt so good to me was, and yes, I know what I said. I said felt good. Um, it's October Till, and it's so non-assuming and it's so heartwarming. It's the tale of a genie and a woman, right? And the whole time, like, you would think, like, a person who accidentally summons a genie is like, you know, fucking ready to just tell them these are the wishes that I want, you know. um but this person is like, just, this is the vibe I got. Like, genie showed up and was like, hey, what's up? And then the genie is like, let's get right down to business. Like, how many fucking, you know, what wishes do you want? And just so you know, like, we can't do the whole, I wish that I have forever unlimited wishes and stuff. I'm not gonna do that shit. But then the chick is like, cool. Are you hungry? Like, you just get the vibe that she just wants the company, you know, like, and it's not because she needs it, but because, well, wouldn't you want to just hang out with the genie? Because, like, sure, hanging out with humans is fun and shit, but like, why not a genie? Like, why don't you just, you know, like, I would have questions. I would want to know what their food preferences are. I would want to know what their, I don't know, what they feel about society these days and social media. But so it's very much that, you know, she's just like, and he keeps not dodging his questions or his persistence to just get down to the wishes part, the business part of it, because that's essentially what he is, right? He's like, it's this transaction that he just completes with a human, and then he's just gone. Um, and he's just, it kind of feels like he's just go, go, go. Kind of like these days, people are like, go, 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 you know, like, let's just get this shit started so I can move on to the next or get back to what I'm doing before. But she's just like, I'm good. And that's what she tells him. She keeps telling him, like, cool, but I'm good. Do you want some tea? You know, like shit like that. So anyway, it's a really cool story. I'm not gonna fucking spoil the ending for you, because I want you to fucking read it, and you're gonna be like, this is cheesy, and I'm gonna say, I don't give a fuck. It's a good story. So, um, what was I saying? See, when I first started doing Around the Coffee Table, um, I was like, man, it's gonna get hard to not tell you the endings of some of the stories or important plots of the stories. And I've noticed, like, because this is a collection of short stories, it's a little more difficult to do that with this kind of format of book, because there's tons of endings. You know, like, it's going to be really hard to duck and dodge spoilers, you know, but I'm going to try my fucking best. Anyways, so there's this other story. It's called November Tale. And oh, it's such a good story. Like, see, and again, this is another example as to why, like, books really are a fucking form of art. You know, they really can be. I'm not saying your manual on how to put your fucking fridge together is going to be art, but you know what I mean? Literature like this. So, when I say books, I mean literature. Um, or is literature the right word? It should be. So, this book, I'm sorry, this story, November Tale, really, it's like a moving painting, and the quality of the painting is only going to be as good as your imagination, and that's not a jab, okay? Because it can be as intricate, as beautiful as you want it to be, depending on like how you see the character in this tale, you know. And when you think about, when I think about art in the museum, I always think about like ethereal things. You know, some paintings have movement, some sculptures capture movement, and you can see it. You know, even though it's a still, you see movement, you see dimension in a 2D painting that's not moving. And I feel like you can see that when you read this story. So, and I don't, obviously, I was like second guessing myself because it's in my nature to do so. But when I was done reading the story, I was like, well, is this literal? Like, did this really happen to her? And then I was thinking, no, you idiot. Shit like that doesn't happen in the real world. I'm so dumb. Just a little funny haha. Just a little funny haha for you to know what was going on in my brain when I read this. But because it left me, it left an impression on me, you know, like after I was done reading it, it made me like, you know, it left me digesting still, which I think good art does. So, anyways, one of the examples of art in a sentence is this. Eloise got up. When the last of the medical records had burned away, she walked inside. The mirror in the hall showed her an Eloise, both familiar and new. She had thick brown hair, and she smiled at herself from the looking glass as if she loved life and trailed comfort in her wake. Oh, it's so good. Like, hold on. Just wait. That is such a good descriptive of a person with good vibes. You know? Like, and I'm and it's the vibes. I don't want to sound, you know, so social media these days, but it really is, because there's a difference between seeing like a beautiful woman and seeing a beautiful woman, or you know, what, or just a woman. There's a difference between seeing a what you think is a beautiful woman and then just seeing a woman without, you know, not really judging her on her looks or anything, but she just, the way she carries herself, the vibes, you know what I mean? So like she carries herself like she's always had she has a smile on her face that reaches up to her eyes. You can see smile lines on her face. Um, you know, like uh she, because I do it. I walk with a smile on my face at work just because I'm happy. You know, I don't even have to be laughing at anything, but I'm just in a good mood. You know what I mean? Um, and someone that just is naturally kind, you know? This is the vibe that I get. This is the picture that I see when I read this line is she loved life and trailed comfort in her wake. You know what I'm talking about. That person that you just want to get to know. That person that, like, you know, like, if you make that person laugh, You feel great for doing that, for eliciting that laughter, that beautiful musical laughter out of her. You know what that is. So this is all like the imagination exercise that my brain is doing while I just read this one line. So I don't know, like talent. So let's look at some other stories. Oh, that and this is a weird one. All right. So I think what I'll do is, yeah, I'm gonna end with. Ooh, no, that was a good one too. I'll talk about two more stories before I call it. Okay. So the next story that I'm going to talk about is called My Last Landlady. That one is also very much like the other story that I was telling you about the monologue. By the way, the one with the monologue is called Down to a Sunless Sea. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. But if you're looking for like just a good around the campfire ghost story, I would gravitate towards Down to a Sunless Sea and My Last Landlady. That one's really cool too. It's really dark. My Last Landlady is very, very short and very dark. Like this shit hits the fan really, really quick. And it's almost, you get the same feeling that you would as if you were watching a movie. And you ever watch those movies where you're just like, this person that's a little weird, I feel like that's the bad person, the person that's been killing everybody. And then you're just like, and then you get led to believe that it isn't. And you're like, oh, wait, oh, I guess I was wrong. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, you led me astray. And then shit gets real fast. So, and the last story that I'm going to end with is Orange. So Orange is super unique because I've never seen a story presented in this format, and it's in the format of a questionnaire. Awesome. Awesome. It's in the format of a questionnaire, but there is no questions. You only get to read the answers. And within the answers themselves, it tells you a crazy sci-fi story about this ordinary ass family and how shit just hits the fan whenever a substance gets introduced. And it's not like a drug or anything, but it's like a mysterious otherworldly substance gets introduced into one member of the family's life, which by the way is not like the greatest person, like has doesn't have the greatest personality traits. You know, it's a snotty little kid. But the substance gets introduced to that person, and it essentially gets integrated into them, and they transform. And this already snotty kid went from making people's lives difficult to making their lives impossible in the funniest way. It's very much like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but aliens. And if you read Orange, tell me that analogy was not spot on. It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids vibes, right? But with aliens. Okay. All right. So that's where I'm gonna end it. It's actually very fitting because it's a book of short stories, and I think this stream is only half an hour, which is half of what I usually put out. Anyways, so I'm gonna let you go back to enjoying your Friday. If you enjoy the shorter streams, let me know, and I'll do my best to whittle down my excitement into something more concentrated so I can, you know, give you the goods in a more compact stream. So, yeah, let me know. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok, because, I mean, how else are you going to let me know? And I guess you could whisper on here. I don't know very much about Twitch, but hardly anyone whispers to me. So follow me on those platforms, especially if you want to know what I'm going to read next. Um, also, oh, before I leave you, there will not be a gaming stream on Sunday. Tomorrow I'm leaving for San Antonio for a night, and I will be back. So, oh, will that give us a? No, no, we'll still be on the road. Sorry, I'm like, ooh, hopeful of doing the stream, but no, I can't. I can't. So maybe I'll be able to do it on a Monday instead. Again, follow me on Instagram to find out because that's usually where I post my updates and shit like that. So, anyways, enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. And I will see you on the next one. Okay? Bye.